The rain poured relentlessly that night, turning the streets into rivers of mud. Daniel Cross, a forgotten war veteran, wandered through the storm, cold, hungry, and haunted by memories he couldn't escape. Then he heard it, a faint, broken whimper slicing through the thunder. He followed the sound, flashlight shaking in his hand, until the beam landed on something that made his blood run cold. A female police officer, bound and unconscious, and beside her, a K9 dog lying motionless in the rain. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "Help him." Daniel dropped to his knees, instincts roaring back to life. He didn't know who they were or what had happened, but he knew one thing. He couldn't walk away again. Before we start, make sure to hit like, share, and subscribe. And really, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. The rain fell in heavy sheets, blurring the world into shadows and reflections. On the edge of town, where broken streetlights flickered and the wind howled through empty alleys, Daniel Cross trudged forward, his worn boots sinking into puddles. Once a decorated Marine, now a forgotten soul. He carried nothing but a torn backpack, an old jacket, and the weight of memories he could never outrun. He had long stopped counting the nights he'd slept under bridges or in abandoned buildings. The world had moved on without him. But this night felt different. There was something in the air, something restless. The distant thunder echoed like artillery, and Daniel's instincts sharpened. Then he heard it. Faint, fragile, almost lost beneath the storm, a whimper. He froze. His heartbeat quickened. It wasn't just an animal's cry. It carried desperation, pain, fear. He followed the sound through the rain, flashlight trembling in his grip. The deeper he went, the stronger the sound grew, pulling him toward an alley cloaked in darkness. The air smelled of gasoline and iron. Daniel's breath hitched as he turned the corner, and what he saw next would rip open every scar the war had left behind. Daniel's flashlight beam cut through the storm, flickering over the glistening pavement. The sound was louder now, low, pained, and rhythmic, like breathing strained through agony. Then, at the end of the alley, his light landed on something that made his stomach twist. That a police cruiser sat half submerged in a puddle, driver's door wide open, radio crackling faintly with static. Muddy footprints led away from it, erratic and overlapping, as if someone had been dragged. Daniel followed them slowly, every step deliberate, his military instincts pushing him forward. Behind a stack of rusted barrels, he found her. A female police officer, wrists bound with rough cord, her uniform soaked and torn. Her badge was smeared, but the name read Mills. She was breathing, barely. But beside her lay something that hit Daniel even harder. A German shepherd, motionless, drenched, one paw twitching weakly. Daniel dropped to his knees. Hey, can you hear me?" he asked, pressing 2 fingers to the officer's neck. A faint pulse. Then, her cracked lips moved. "Help him." First, her eyes shifted toward the dog. Without hesitation, Daniel tore off his jacket, wrapping the K9 tightly. "You're not dying tonight," he muttered, cutting the cords from her wrists with his pocket knife. Then something caught his eye, a red blinking light, mounted high above them, aimed right at their faces. Someone had been watching. Daniel froze, staring at the blinking red light. The lens glistened through the rain, recording, watching, calculating. His pulse quickened. Every muscle in his body tensed. "We need to move," he whispered, scanning the shadows. But the moment his eyes met the unconscious K9's face, a memory came crashing back. The desert, the explosion, and his own military dog, Shadow, bleeding out in his arms. He shook the image away and focused. Training took over. He checked the dog's airway, felt for a heartbeat, then began pressing against its chest rhythmically. The officer stirred beside him, her voice faint and broken. "They took my partner. Ambush. We found something we shouldn't have." Daniel leaned closer. "Who?" Her eyes flickered open for just a moment. "Carter. Ex-cop. He's selling weapons." Her head fell to the side again, weak breaths escaping between rain-soaked lips. The cruiser radio crackled suddenly. "Unit 47, do you copy?" Daniel froze. If Carter was behind this, that call could be a trap. He shut it off and scanned the alley. In one swift motion, he lifted the officer onto a broken cart, laid the dog across his lap, and pushed them into the storm. The red light above flickered once more, before going dark. The rain didn't let up as Daniel trudged through the soaked forest trail. The officer slumped over his shoulder, and the wounded K9 pressed close to his leg. The icy wind bit into his skin, but he didn't stop. He knew these woods. Veterans like him had once trained here, back when his body still obeyed his will. Now, it was sheer instinct keeping him moving that he spotted an old hunting cabin, half collapsed under years of neglect, its windows boarded and roof sagging under the weight of snow and rain. Kicking the door open, Daniel carried them inside. Dust and rot filled the air, but at least it was shelter. He laid the officer on a tattered couch, the dog beside her, its shallow breaths barely audible, lighting a fire from scraps. He worked quickly, pressing a torn shirt against the officer's bleeding side, whispering, "Stay with me. Come on." The K9 whined faintly, its eyes fluttering open for the first time. "Good boy," Daniel murmured, stroking its soaked fur. "You're a fighter." As he secured the cabin door with an old beam, something outside made him freeze. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate. Then, a faint metallic click echoed through the storm. Daniel's hand instinctively reached for his knife. He whispered to the dog, "Stay low." Someone was coming. The door creaked open. A beam of light sliced through the dark cabin, sweeping across the floor. Daniel pressed himself against the wall, gripping his knife tightly. Two shadows entered, one tall, one broad, voices muffled beneath the roar of rain. "Boss said they're here." The dog's still breathing. One muttered. Daniel's pulse pounded in his ears. He waited until they stepped closer, then lunged. In one swift motion, he slammed the first man into the wall, silencing him before he could scream. The second spun, gun raised, but the K9, revived by instinct, leapt from the floor, biting his arm. The gun fired once, shattering a lamp. Daniel tackled him hard, knocking the pistol away. Outside, lightning flashed. For a split second, Daniel saw his enemy's face, scarred, cold, and familiar from the officer's description. Carter, the ex-cop sneered, blood dripping from his arm. "You should have stayed dead, soldier." Daniel's grip tightened. "So should you." The two men crashed through the door, rolling into the mud as thunder exploded overhead. Carter swung wildly, but Daniel's training took over. One strike, two, until the fight ended with Carter face down, groaning in defeat. Inside, Officer Mills stirred, whispering weakly, "You saved us." Daniel glanced at the dog, panting beside her, and nodded. "No, we did." But the storm outside wasn't done, and neither was fate. Dawn crept slowly over the drenched forest, the storm finally easing into silence. The cabin was in ruins, but inside, warmth flickered from a dying fire. Officer Laura Mills sat propped against a wall, her wounds bandaged, eyes glazed with exhaustion. Beside her, the K9 stirred, lifting its head weakly. Daniel crouched beside them, his jacket wrapped around the dog like a blanket. "You're safe now," he said quietly. "He's going to make it." Laura's voice cracked. "You saved both of us." Daniel shook his head. "You don't leave your own behind. Not ever." Moments later, the distant wail of sirens echoed through the trees. Backup had finally come. Daniel helped Laura to her feet as uniformed officers stormed the clearing, shouting commands. Carter, bound and bloodied, was led away in handcuffs, his reign of corruption finally over. Before being taken to the hospital, Laura turned back to Daniel. "You're not just a soldier, you're a savior. Don't disappear again." He smiled faintly. "Guess I've got one more mission left." Weeks later, Laura walked into a veterans K9 rehabilitation center, and there he was, training rescue dogs with the same German shepherd by his side. Daniel looked up, grinning. "Told you he'd pull through." She smiled back. "Looks like you did too." The camera panned wide. A broken soldier, a saved officer, and a loyal K9. Proof that even in ruin, loyalty can rebuild life.